welcome back to my channel. My name is Lucy and I share videos on the topic of long COVID, chronic fatigue syndrome and mind-body approaches that can be used to help those conditions and other mind-body conditions. I also coach people who are struggling with making progress when using a mind-body approach. So today's video, I'm talking about a few different ideas that can help you feel more hopeful. And these ideas are based on my own experience. This isn't medical or mental health advice. It can be really common to feel hopeless when you've been struggling from long COVID or chronic fatigue syndrome or another long-term health condition that has been going on a long time. Even if it hasn't been going on for a very long time, it can be really normal to feel helpless, hopeless, and really down about the situation. Sometimes we need to check in with ourselves and think about how hopeful do I feel right now, and do I need to work on this? Because hope is so important for moving forward, for trying different things, and for feeling more positive. And there's a few different things that we can think about in relation to hope. One of the things to consider is what thoughts you're having at the moment. Because often when people feel hopeless, they have a lot of negative thoughts. So those thoughts might be catastrophic thoughts about the future, things that could potentially go wrong. And also generalizing thoughts where we're making assumptions about things based on how we feel right now. Thoughts like, I'm never going to get better, I'm too unwell to get better, I have been unwell for too long to get better. Some of these thoughts can make it really challenging for us to take the steps to move forward. So starting to observe your thoughts can be really helpful to get a bit of distance. You are not your thoughts, and your thoughts are not necessarily true. So if you're having a thought that I'm going to be unwell for the rest of my life, well, you can't tell the future, so you don't know that for sure. That is not a fact. You might not be unwell for the rest of your life. And if that's a thought that you're regularly having, then of course you're going to feel hopeless, because it's a really sad and scary thought to have. I made a video about negative thinking before and different ways to manage negative thinking, so I'm going to put a link to that video in the description, because I go into a lot more detail there about thinking and managing negative thoughts. But this is something to keep track of, and you could even think about the fact that maybe one part of you feels really hopeless, but another part of you does have some hope. And maybe you need to give some time and energy and attention to the part that does have a bit of hope and try to build that part up. So observing your thoughts might also give you clues as to why you don't feel hopeful. So for some people, they can feel hopeless because they have thoughts like, I don't deserve to be better in the future, or I can't bear the idea of having another setback and trying and failing. Considering what it is that's holding your hope back could be really important, because you might need to reflect on, why is that something that you're thinking or you're feeling, and how can you overcome that? For example, that thought that I'm scared to try to get better and have hope to get better in case I fail. It's really natural to have that thought if you've had setbacks again and again and again, and you've had your hopes up again and again and again, and your hopes have been dashed. That thought might be in some way trying to protect you from that feeling of disappointment again. But maybe you don't need to be protected from a feeling of disappointment again. Maybe what you need is the hope to get better so that you can take steps forward. Because if you are in a state of protecting yourself from potential failure and potentially feeling worse again in the future, then how can you make progress? How can you move forward? And if that is the case for you, reflecting on how you manage failure, how you managed setbacks is really important, because managing setbacks and managing fear and managing doubt are really important parts of the process of recovering. So another thing to consider is, what is your story about the future if you are thinking about the future? So if you are thinking, I don't know what work I want to do, I don't want to go back into my previous job, I don't want to go back into the relationship dynamics that I was in before, these are things to think about as well. Are there a lot of fences and barriers and concerns about the future if you are well again? And you don't need to solve all of those issues now. Those are things that will evolve as you recover and as you get better. What is important is having a more positive outlook for the future. So I'm not saying replace negative ideas about the future with positive ideas, but start to build on the positive ones. So what did you really enjoy doing before that you'd really like to get back to? And start placing your focus on that, reminding yourself of that each day. And how can you start to engage in those activities now, even though physically you might not be able to do them? So if you used to be a long distance runner, find someone on YouTube who talks about their ultra distance running and find inspiration through that person. If you used to really enjoy baking, find baking videos or find a podcast that talks about baking. Maybe listen to an audiobook that goes into the history of baking, or something that you find inspiring, interesting, and engaging. If you are not doing things that you find somewhat inspiring and engaging on a day-to-day basis, you might not feel like yourself. So even if you are bedbound, there will be some things that you can do, whether that's watching something or listening to something, that will help. If you love animals and you don't have any animals at home, ask one of your friends to bring their dog over for a visit. If you enjoy music, start to search for new music that you enjoy, or go back and listen to music you haven't listened to in a really long time. Do things that switch up your routine a bit. If thinking about some of the things that you used to do make you feel sad and make you feel that sense of loss, it might be a sign that you need to experience some emotions that you haven't experienced yet. So if you can't bear the thought of thinking about running when you used to be a runner, then maybe you need to process the feelings of sadness and the feelings of loss. Also, if you feel a bit more hopeful that you will eventually get back to running, it might be easier to start thinking about those activities and listen to other people talk about it, or watch TV programs about it, or watch YouTube videos about it. And if it's hard for you to say, I will be able to run again and I will be able to bake again, you can tell yourself something you do believe, like, maybe I'll be able to bake again in the future. That might be more believable and easier for you to connect with than telling yourself, I will definitely bake in the future. Think in a way that is aligned and in a way that you can get your foot in the door of having some hope. Another thing that can impact on hope is not knowing how to move forward or what to do to get better. And different things will help different people. The approach that I talk about is a mind-body approach. That's what helped me. And that approach in itself actually gave me a lot of hope as well, because I started to realize that the symptoms were a result of my brain and my nervous system trying to protect me, rather than the symptoms being caused by some unknown underlying physical cause. So the symptoms were real and physical, but I found a lot of hope in this idea that actually these symptoms can shift and can change because my brain and my nervous system are creating them to protect me. In other videos, I talk in more detail about different things you can try, different exercises you can do and approaches you can take to use the mind-body approach for recovery. And to apply these things, you don't need to believe 100% it's going to help you. You just need to have some curiosity and open-mindedness to try. And if you've tried lots of other things and you don't have anything to try right now, you have nothing to lose. And whatever approach you are using to get better right now, think about your plan, or what are your next steps? What do you need to focus on right now? So if you don't know where to start, you don't know what to do next, it can feel overwhelming and it can be hard to feel hopeful because it doesn't feel like there's a straight line forward to follow. Doing some research, getting advice, or finding different things to try and sticking to those for a period of time can be really helpful, because for some people, if they jump from one approach to another approach and one exercise to another exercise, and when I say exercise, I'm talking about journaling or emotional reflection or somatic tracking, it's hard to have hope because there's no consistency there for those things to work. Having patience and consistency around what you're doing is really important, and it can take time. Also, thinking about your mindset. Is your mindset in the same place that it was when you got unwell? You might need to change your mindset in order to get better. And you can ask yourself the question, what type of a person would have hope? What would they feel if they felt hopeful? How can I feel hopeful in a way that someone else would feel hopeful in this situation? What characteristics would they need? And how can I start to instill some of the behaviours related to those characteristics on a day-to-day basis? So I touched on this one before, but one thing that's important is really considering why you want to get better. What, in terms of your values, makes it really important for you to get better? Is it that you really value spending time with your family and friends? Maybe it's that you really value spending time with your children whilst they're young. Maybe it's that you really value nature and being outside in nature and experiencing the world or traveling. What are these things that are really important to you, or that you would choose to do if you were told you only had 1 week left to live? What would you choose to do in that 1 week if you were physically able to do anything? Focusing on those, reminding yourself of those on a regular basis is important, and you could even create a vision board. So writing down different things, cutting out pictures of places you want to visit, of people that you want to spend time with, of activities that you want to do, and putting that somewhere that you're going to see it every single day. Another thing that can be helpful to think about is actually why you don't want to be unwell. This might be something you already think about regularly. I don't want to feel like this. I feel awful. I want my life back. We can also use this as motivation for hope. We can start to think, I don't want to spend more years of my life unwell in this way. I don't want this illness to creep into another year or another month. So I'm really going to focus on what I want for the future, how I can be optimistic, how I can make this happen. We can't think ourselves well. We have to do lots of other things. We have to try and apply different approaches. We have to manage fear. We have to manage doubt. We have to put ourselves out of our comfort zone when trying new activities and increasing activity. But when we feel really decided that we're going to try our best and we don't want this situation to linger on. It can flick a switch and put us in a different mind frame. When I came across the mind-body approach, my hope and motivation also dramatically increased because it was coming up to my birthday. And I just had this feeling that I did not want to bring illness into my next year. I really wanted to say, I want to close this door of being unwell. I do not want it anymore. And there's a balance because we have to accept how we feel right now, what our symptoms are, but also sometimes reflecting on where we are can be useful to flick a switch and put us in a different mind frame in a way that our hope can increase, and that we can think, well, actually, I have nothing to lose. I really, really want this. Hope is something really worth putting some time and energy into reflecting on and working on if you are struggling with hope and you think that your lack of hope is affecting your recovery. Let me know in the comments if you are feeling hopeless, or if you are managing to cling on to some hope, or if you have other ideas that can help with improving your feelings of hope for getting better. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe. If you'd like to join the Facebook group, there's a link in the description below. I'll also put a link for my Instagram page. If you're interested in using a mind-body approach and you think you would benefit from support in applying that approach to yourself, understanding how to use it, there's a link to my website and a link to booking a call with me to discuss coaching and how that can help. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.